This is the pied flycatcher. The pied flycatcher is a migratory songbird that breeds in Europe and spends the winter in Africa. When they sense spring is coming, they take off towards Europe, where they usually arrive in mid-April and they stay until the end of September. It is uncertain what triggers a migration of pied flycatchers, but experimental studies have shown that the reaction on day length, also known as photoperiod, is at least a part of it. Their migration is an example of phenology, the timing of biological events. When in Europe, they start their search for a nesting site and a partner. In the Netherlands, about 90% of flycatchers use nest boxes. It's important for the flycatchers to match their breeding with a peak availability of food. A main food source for the newly hatched chicks are caterpillars. However, due to climate change, the average temperature is rising in Europe. This causes the peak in caterpillar abundance to become earlier in the year. In other words, this phenological event happens earlier. Besides being earlier, the duration of high caterpillar availability might become shorter because caterpillars grow faster and advance pupation at higher temperatures. The flycatchers, on the other hand, still arrive in Europe around the same time. They do start breeding a bit earlier, but their change in timing is not as much as that of the caterpillars. The flycatchers are probably constrained by their constant timing of arrival in the breeding areas. The breeding of the pied flycatcher advances with about half a day per year, whereas the peak caterpillar abundance advances 0.75 days a year. Due to temperatures rising, the caterpillar peak occurs between the laying and the hatching of the flycatcher eggs. In the Netherlands, there is a 90% decline of pied flycatchers in the areas where the peak caterpillar availability is earliest. In areas with a later caterpillar peak, the pied flycatchers only show a population decline of 10%. In areas where the declines are highest, there is a strong selection for early breeding. The hungry flycatcher chicks are the victims of a phenological mismatch. A mismatch can be described as phenological events that are not well synchronized anymore, by which their trophic relationship begins to change. In the case of the pied flycatcher, the caterpillar's peak happens earlier and the pied flycatchers can't keep up with this peak, which causes a decline in the population as mentioned before. Unfortunately, the case of the pied flycatcher is not unique. There is a general decline in European long-distance migrants. It is thought that long-distance migrants are more vulnerable to global change than sedentary species. This is because migrants have to predict the circumstances at their destination while they are still at their wintering grounds. The further the distance between breeding and wintering grounds, the harder it becomes to predict. Furthermore, climate is not changing at the same rate across the globe, so changes at the breeding grounds might be more severe than at the wintering grounds and/or at stops along the way. Besides long-distance migrants being more vulnerable than sedentary species, species in areas with strong seasonality, in other words, further from the equator, are more vulnerable than species in areas without pronounced seasonality, such as the tropics. A lot of species, including the pied flycatcher, suffer the consequences of these climate change-initiated mismatches. Many studies have been done on this subject, and this has provided us with useful insights. However, to fully understand the mismatches that can occur and what their impacts will be, more research needs to be done. Now we know why the populations of the pied flycatcher are declining. We are closer to finding a solution to this decline. For now, when you look outside your window, you will be aware that you might be the witness of a mismatch.